G'day guys, it's Kelvin, Coaching Company New Zealand. So I have got a bit of an email from a guy who wanted a bit of help getting his automatic transmission to shift. We're going to get straight into this. Adrian, this is for you. And what we've got, first thing I want to check is, and we're running, so it's running a Haltech. I'm jumping ahead, of course, and it's an A340, and it's got a JZ in front of it. And, you know, if I keep saying I don't know how those 6 cylinders work, I always work on V8s, but we're doing the trend, so it's okay. I checked the shifter position, and if we look down here, so this is where the shifter moves, and we go down, it's got one of Scott from Next Level Motorsports shifter boxes in it. And we've got this two here. We've got reverse and neutral being the same input, so that's not correct. I've talked to them about that, and I believe they've addressed that problem. So each of the gears, the computer needs to see the different gears. And what I find I do is I have it over here in the live data, and I have which gear it's in. And I think in this case, what would have happened is it would have been sitting like in between the gears on the gates, and it's like no man's land in there. So it's not unusual when you're shifting it through the shifter. So if you're going from park to reverse, it often jumps up in neutral in between, and then you're in reverse and you pull back to neutral, and or even if you're selecting, say, and this one won't have it, but from drive back to second, there's often a neutral in there, and it shows. But it doesn't affect it because it just flicks back so quick anyway. So, but it does if you try to calibrate it like that. So you need to calibrate that correctly, have all the correct inputs going in. Okay, gear selector position, so that's in there. And then we go down to the auto shift points. And this is the table I'm going to be adjusting today. I am cheating a little bit. I have got an older one that I copy off and I use as my shift points. And not everyone's going to have that. This one's got the output set to RPM. I'm going to change that. I'm going to do it a more conventional way, where we do it gear shift based on TPS and speed. So I'm going to change this around a little bit, and I go to transmission control, and we've got auto up and down. That's good. We've got main variable shift point, and I'm just going to click into here, and I'm going to do it over driven. No, it's got a speed sensor, drive shaft vehicle speed. Okay, and we, of course, we're doing it by vehicle speed. We need to have a vehicle speed input going in, so we need to check in the sensors that we have a vehicle speed. Drivetrain, so it's the correct one, and this has to be calibrated correctly, which is tricky when you've got a transmission that doesn't always shift. You can do is you can just unplug the solenoid plug, pop it in a suitable gear, or manually shift it through the gears, get it up and driving, and then calibrate your speed sensor. Okay, then go back, plug your solenoid plug back in, and set the gear shift. So vehicle speed has to be correct, or within the ballpark anyway, because it's going to be one of the variables that we're using for the gear shift. Okay, so we're going to go down here. We're going to transmission control. We got auto shift points. So now we can see the output is now via kilometers per hour for speed, and I'm going to table access, and I'm going to change this to I think it's under throttle position, isn't it? Throttle position sensor? Throttle position. Okay. These ones are the gear shift, and these ones are the shifter position. Okay, gear selector position. At the moment, I'm just going to set it up in the D. And these ones, I don't think it's meant to be a -9. I'm just going to get rid of that, eh? Now this has got sports mode. So we want drive and we want sport mode. That's going to change it. Well, I'm just going to focus on getting this correct at the moment, which is the D. And I'm almost tempted at the moment just to turn that one off. We'll just get rid of it. Okay, now that just gets rid of that for this point in time and keeps it real simple. I actually had a variable shift knob in it, like a rotary knob, so different inputs. Right, so this is the speed we're going to be traveling, and that's your throttle position at the top. And what do I do? Oh, you know, I'm cheating a little bit, guys. If I go here and I've just got my phone in front of me, and I've taken a photo. I probably could put them to more normal throttle positions to make it a bit easier to work with, which I should have done just a moment ago. And do we have an initialize? Do we have linearize? What happens when we do that? Where was it? What's it? Start value of 0, end value of 100, increments of 10. What happens? Oh, look at that. That makes it easier. That's TPS. 10% increments. That makes it nice and simple. Okay, there we go. Look at that. I can put the whole table on one, so it sees. Okay, and it's going to change gear at 66 k's now. So the way this works is you're in first. You're traveling on first, and it's going to shift into second. So you want it to shift into second reasonably soon if you're not using much throttle. Okay, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it at 12 kilometers per hour. So I'm going to shift from first to second with a little bit of throttle. Oh, I'm going to change it at 20. And then I'm going to change it at 28 and 32. Now I want to change down again. So this is changing. Oh, wrong button. This is when you're in second. Okay, so we've gone 12 kilometers per hour with very little throttle, and it'll interpolate between these two, and it'll shift into second gear. What it's saying here is it's going to shift down back to first at 66 kilometers per hour. We want it to shift down a gear at a less speed than you've shifted up, because otherwise it's going to go down and go, wait, I need to change up again, and go up and down, up and down, up and down. That's bad. So we're going to make it go down at 8 kilometers per hour. This one's probably going to be 18. Oh no, it's 12. And then at 22. Okay, so you can see it comes along. First gear, it's 12 kilometers per hour. Shifts up, really light throttle, and then if you drop down, you put your foot on the brake and you pull it down, it will drop back to 12. Now we want to change. We're in second. We're going to change to third. So we're going to do that at about 30 kilometers per hour. And we're going to change, if it's in third, and we want to change it back to second, it needs to be a smaller number than the change up. Let's do 28. No, it's probably a bit tight. 25. I'm just going to fang some numbers in here. Fang 38, 32. So the next one is we're changing from third, so we're in third, and we're going to go into fourth gear. Very low throttle, and same deal here. So we've changed to third. No, we haven't. We've changed to fourth, haven't we? We're on 50 k's now, and now we're going to change back to third. So you're slowing down. And that means you can go up to 50, it'll change gear, And if you slow down to 45, it's still going to stay in 4th gear. It's not going to change down to 3rd until you get to 40 kilometers per hour. 590, that's probably not going to work. And what I'm doing here is I'm just doing a fairly generic map so it will change gear. I'm going to put some known numbers in so the customer can drive it and see if it does what it's meant to do and actually get some gear changes. They can then tweak it from there or adjust it to suit their application. We've got a few others here. Oh, there's the wiring. Got to make sure the wiring is correct. So these solenoids are wired correct, because it's not going to work if your wiring isn't correct. RPM shift point. So this is the point that regardless of what speed you get to, it is going to change gear. Okay. I've got a map over here, and I'll just whip over to this map, and I've got a similar one here. RPM shift point. I put it at 6.4. Regardless, it's going to change gear. So if it gets to 6,400 RPM, it changes to the next gear. Okay. And that will alter for different engines. And there's a shift inhibit and shift duration. Those ones, if I go back to the software, here we go. Nope, I'm in the wrong software. There we go. Shift duration. Normalize air mass flow. Okay, so I'm going to adjust that one too to something more normal. So I'm going to tweak that one. That's how long it takes to shift each gear at a certain load setting. So I'll change that as well. I'm just going to pause this for a little bit. I'm going to go through and put all the shift points in, because I think we're kind of getting the idea of that, and I'll show you what I've done once I've actually done that, instead of babbling along while I'm doing that. And you guys can't do two things at once very well. I'll talk to you in just a moment. Ta-da! I've got a table. So this is, again, we've just highlight what we've done. 1 to 2, that's where it shifts up. And if we come to the top of the table, you don't want to be in first gear doing 70 kilometers per hour. Okay, so, oh sorry, at 50, over 50. So at 53, regardless of TPS, it's going to go to second gear. Okay, regardless. The same thing happens in second to third. As you come along, at 115 kilometers per hour, regardless, it is going to change into, it's going to go from second to third. Chances are you're going to be at your RPM shift point anyway, so it's going to be changed. So by the time you get to the top of the tables, there's other factors coming in. So regardless of what the numbers you put in here, it will change because you're over your RPMs. There's your shift down. So you're always going to shift down when you get to that speed. It's going to go down a gear. So you always have your shift down at a lower speed than your shift up. Otherwise, it's going to go up and then go, wait, I need to shift down again. And shift down and then go up, and that doesn't work. Third into fourth comes along, and at 100% throttle, it's going to be doing 168 kilometers per hour before it shifts into fourth gear or overdrive. Okay. I often have it where, like, that one goes right up like 190 kilometers per hour before it shifts into fourth gear if you're at full throttle. This also controls your kick down as well. So, you know, if you're going along and let's say you're at 60% throttle, okay, and as you increase your throttle, if you're not going fast enough, you end up going down here, so it will kick down into third gear because your throttle position has changed. That gives us a shift point. That's a nice safe table. It should be enough to get this vehicle changing gear, and then it can be tuned from there. This table can be tuned by the customer while they're driving it. You get a bit of a feel for it. You kind of up and down. RPM shift point's done, and I've gone through and I've changed the duration of those shifts via throttle position. We haven't done that one yet. Now, going to line pressure control, it's got some targets here. It's got a base duty cycle. It's got a shifting target table. It's got a shifting base duty cycle. It's got a temperature correction, and it's got the wiring. Okay, so we've only got a line pressure control solenoid. Oi! And the dogs fire up. They're not even real dogs. They're like cats that bark. So we've got no way of targeting because we don't have a line pressure sensor. So these tables aren't going to work for us at all, because it's going to be targeting something that it can't target because it doesn't know where it's meant to target. So I'm going to have a bit of a chat to the customer about that. Either it gets a line pressure solenoid sensor, line pressure sensor, and we put in some realistic line pressure targets, or we just do it off the duty cycle. Not really a fan. I'd prefer to have a sensor in there, but they also need to be correct. And I'm going to go offline. I'm going to pause this a little bit and do a couple of changes to try and get something that basically at this point I may even just have the line pressure not being controlled, so it's full line pressure, so at least it changes gear. We're doing diagnostics here as well as trying to set it up. I'm in New Zealand, customers overseas, I can't drive the car, so trying to put in some safe numbers to get it to do what we want it to do. And the videos to explain it, because it's easier than writing an email. It take me ages to write this in an email. So let me change some numbers and we will talk to the customer and see what we can do. And it's off normalized airflow too, and I don't think normalized air mass flow, which we don't have a sensor to do that either. So that's again, you're trying to use a sensor that isn't there as one of your load systems. Let me check sensors. There isn't one. It's off manifold pressure, so we can do manifold pressure, but no, so the axis setup isn't correct either. Hold right there. I'll be back in a moment. Okay. So I've gone through and I've just given it a little bit of duty cycle when you're shifting it into the gear. When it's actually in gear, I've turned line pressure off at the moment. And I've gone down and I've had a bit of a look at the torque converter as well. This one says minimum in second. I've got a feeling the torque converter may not mechanically be able to be locked up in second. So I'm going to change that to third for the moment. I've already done it. Wait, that's alright. Yeah, done it already. I've got the lock point at 75 and unlock, and it's the same thing with the torque converter as the gear shift. Okay, so you need to change it up at a higher speed than you unlock it. I put some duty cycles in. They were all over the place with the torque converter, and we'll just check the wiring. So that should allow torque converter lockup. So this, with what I've just done, hopefully will now enable the engine or the transmission to shift gear. And from there, the customer will be able to tune it appropriately. And then after that, we will work on getting the sport mode or the Tiptronic working. But there's no point trying to do that until it actually shifts gear in auto mode first. So one step at a time. Got to check whether overdrive. No, I'm sure it's got it in there in the shift box, so they have to confirm that it's actually getting all the gears. We'll do that by actually monitoring it when you're driving it, and that's going to give a much better feel than me sitting at my desk in my house. It's actually I'm in my lounge, trying to work through this. So that's going to make it now comes down to running some logs and checking all that stuff and getting some live data. If we have a look over here, I'll just, if I move this out of the way a little bit, hopefully we'll get some stuff happening here. Come on. Oh, wrong side. So what I've got on here for the transmission, oh, and probably transmission temp sensor actually. And I've got the gear, it's actually in the gear selector position. So that's important that the gear selector position is showing drive when you want it to be in drive. In the gear. And then you can go through if you want, you can do your lockup point in there. You can have the line pressure duty solenoid, the solenoid, what that's at, and those sorts of things to monitor. And of course, vehicle speed, check that the speed is normal. I've had some where you're driving along and it suddenly says you're doing 2,000 kilometers per hour, and the transmissions don't seem to work at 2,000 kilometers per hour. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful. It's just a touch of bit of setup. I'm going to save this map, send it back to the customer. They are going to check that when they send this, put this back in, they're going to have to recalibrate the gear shifter positions. And once we've got it up and changing gear, then we can put in separate maps for other, if you put other buttons in or rotary knobs and things like that. But let's get it shifting gear first. Hope that's been helpful. Talk to you soon. Catch you later.